Hello everyone, this is Wyatt Huber. Today I'm going to be covering the severe threat for Tuesday and Wednesday, March 3rd and 4th of 2025. That will include portions of the southern plains, lower and mid-Mississippi Valley, Midwest, Southeast, and into the East Coast region in Carolinas. So I'm going to be using the GFS model for this particular video from the College of DuPage. And bear with me, I do not have a page marker right now. If anyone has any suggestions, please comment below. I'm just starting out with this video thing. Now, looking at the 500 millibar chart, first thing I want to note is that by Monday morning, there's a subtle shortwave trough moving across Dixie, the Dixie region, southeast region really. This trough quickly moves out of the area ahead of the main trough that will cause our big-time severe threat. Now, the reason why I'm noting this shortwave trough is because it already begins to bring subtle moisture return, at least at the 850 millibar level. Note the increasing dew points with the arrows indicating the direction of moisture advection. And note that already by Monday afternoon you have some modest moisture in the low levels of the atmosphere. Now, as we go ahead in time, we see the warm sector increases throughout the day, Monday into Tuesday, when the main severe threat is with some significant moisture in the low levels, before the warm sector does pinch off a little bit. And that will be a potential downfall to this severe event, which we will talk about later. But first I want to look at the 500 millibar chart. Again, this upper low centered over the southern high plains will eject eastward by Tuesday morning, already neutrally tilted with the shortwave trough on the southern side of it. Quickly becomes negatively tilted by Tuesday afternoon and evening. And when you have upper level divergence like this, you're going to have robust surface cyclogenesis, which you can see take place. Already Lee cyclogenesis taking place Monday as the trough is back over the Rockies. And by Tuesday morning, already a very deep surface low, 984 millibar central pressure on this particular GFS run, which has come into better agreement with the European run. But since the 12Z European run is not out at this time of recording, I'm not able to show on the College of DuPage. As we continue forward in time with the surface low, it quickly deepens, already well in the, again, 984 by Tuesday evening, but deepening into the 970s overnight Tuesday into Wednesday as it moves into the Great Lakes region. Now I want to zoom in onto the southern Great Plains first. By Tuesday morning, you're going to have upper 50s to low 60s dew points extending well into the mid-Mississippi Valley. And note the red contours. That indicates where instability is, at least elevated instability. Now note how these dew points, not super high as far north, but you still have low to mid-60s dew points closer to the Gulf Coast. Now, as this warm sector progresses eastward, it might become pinched off as the surface low occludes. You would have an occluded front in this area here. Now, what this might do is limit the northward extent of the severe threat, and as the warm sector pinches off, you might have less open warm sector space to have a discrete supercell threat develop. Now, we are still 5 days out, so it's hard to tell these details until high-resolution models come into range. But with current models, we're going to look at the overall synoptic view. And that's what we really have right now. There's no high-resolution guidance that goes out this far. I want to look at the strength of the low-level jet. By Tuesday morning, it's already in the 45 to 55 knot range, even to 60 knots in some parts of southern Arkansas, far northern Louisiana. And this will rapidly strengthen throughout the day as the surface low quickly deepens into the low 980s. And with significant height falls noted at the 500 millibar level, this will result in significant forcing for ascent. I'm going to move over a little to the east to show where the main severe threat is, at least according to the GFS model. Note that instability isn't super robust at this point, only in the 500 to 1000 joules per kilogram range. However, with this kind of shear that we're going to be seeing across the region, and as well as the height falls and forcing, that will be more than enough to result in really a significant severe threat. Note the hodograph, large clockwise looping hodographs, resulting in significant effective storm relative helicity well in excess of 400 to 500 meters squared per second squared in this particular sounding. Very, very strong shear, which will be enough to result in embedded tornadoes within what will probably be a highly forced QLCS along the eastward sweeping cold front. Note that the instability profiles are rather skinny. This will help to limit the open warm sector supercell threat, in my opinion. While the GFS doesn't really ever explicitly show open warm sector supercell development, that is a telltale sign that that will struggle outside of the QLCS, which could have embedded supercells. As this QLCS sweeps eastward, you're going to have possibly a significant damaging wind threat due to low-level winds well in excess of 60 to 75 knots. And as those winds mix down as gusts along the leading edge of the line in 50, 60, 70 mile an hour range, those could be quite widespread given the shear values we have and then the high intensity forcing. I want to note that the tornado threat is a little more uncertain, at least for, again, open warm sector supercells, which are highly uncertain at this range and could be limited due to the limited size of the warm sector. However, I want to note the, again, storm relative helicity increases to extreme values. They are in the 500 plus meters squared per second squared range in white. And this only shows up where there is instability. These are extreme values. These really could result in a rather significant line of storms. And again, by Tuesday afternoon, as you have this line here, you might have a little bit of an open warm sector across southern Mississippi and northern Louisiana. Let's take a sounding there, because I suspect that moist adiabatic lapse rates will tend to limit, very poor low-level lapse rates could limit instability into the 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram range across this area. You might have a little bit of a warm nose that tries to develop around 1 to 3 kilometers above the ground, and that is what suppressed our last two events, at least for open warm sector supercell development. A QLCS, a squall line, is nothing to scoff at, by the way, but this just shows that you could really have suppressed open warm sector development. So I'm not super confident in the tornado threat. If an open warm sector supercell does develop, you will have potential for a strong to intense tornado, given the magnitude of shear, despite only modest instability. But I am more concerned about damaging winds, potentially widespread damaging winds, given these low-level wind shear values. As the warm sector pinches off into the overnight hours, you're not going to have much instability. Even elevated instability is struggling, especially further north. You might have a little bit of a severe threat down further south across southern Alabama, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle. But I want to note you have a mid-level ridge that will be retreating eastward at this time by Wednesday evening, and that could result in slightly less height falls than you need for maximum forcing to have thunderstorm development, but I would still expect at least a lower end severe threat, even all the way to the Gulf Coast on Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. I want to look at the Storm Prediction Center forecast. Right now, they're advertising a large, slight risk, 15% region, extending from the central Gulf Coast across the lower Mississippi Valley and into the mid-Mississippi Valley and Ohio Valley. Note the 30% enhanced risk region here already being outlined. I'm not confident in the northern extent of this area right now, but again, models really struggle with moisture at this range. So that will be something to continue to monitor. I wouldn't be surprised to see a little further extension on the Gulf Coast, depending on how models trend over the next couple of days. Now I want to look at the mid-Atlantic region. Note how this trough continues Wednesday. Very powerful upper trough with intense mid-level winds continue eastward as the trough swings around with a very strong negative tilt. Low-level winds will be screaming in the widespread low-level winds in the 60 to 75 knot range across the mid-Atlantic coast. And despite really almost poor dew points, you're going to have some instability work its way northward across this region. So while it may not be a widespread severe threat, there will be potential for a substantial QLCS to continue eastward Wednesday across the Carolinas and in the mid-Atlantic region, possibly into New England, such as southern New Jersey. That is yet to be determined. The SPC outlook does have a large 15% risk extending from the Florida Gulf Coast and Big Bend region into far southern New Jersey, portions of Delaware, and Maryland. I would expect this to mainly be a damaging wind threat, but if you can get more instability to work northward into the region, you might have a more than an isolated embedded tornado threat develop. Over the next couple days, models will continue to trend, and it could trend up or down in terms of the severity of the threat. So it is best to continue to monitor the latest forecasts on this situation. I will try to post another video tomorrow. Thank you for watching, and God bless.